Hey, welcome back. In this mini lecture, we'll be talking about the idea of memory. What is memory? Memory is a cognitive process that enables us to store, retrieve, and apply knowledge. So it's a multi-part cognitive process. If you're engaging in information design, why would we care about memory? People who are designing visual matter can take important memory cues from this work in terms of improving their work so it's more memorable to various audiences and constituencies. One of the major memory models is called the stage theory model. It asserts that human memory develops into three specific stages. First, the sensory input, where someone notices something. Two is short-term memory, where it's a short-term storage. And then three is a long-term memory, where there's a longer-term storage and the person is able to retrieve that over the long term. Let's go through them one by one, shall we? The first is sensory input. Notice. Senses recognize and momentarily store incoming stimuli in sensory memory. So if we see something, it gets into our sensory memory. In that case, the brain either filters out the sensory memory if it's not memorable or it's not useful, or it passes this information to short-term memory. Any images or imagery held in a type of sensory memory is called iconic memory, so it remembers the actual image and what it represents directly. For example, here you would see I believe this is a deer. You see the deer, and that would be held in iconic memory. Number two is short-term memory, storage. When information enters short-term memory, we begin processing it in active, conscious ways. So we're getting further and further on this type of memory process. So when we get a piece of visual information, we can discard it, or we can think more about it. And the more we think about it, the more it's going to be, the more likelihood that it's going to be kept in your memory. The more we process it, more likely we are to remember it. And if we're not really working in terms of reactively trying to keep it in long-term memory by looking at it and processing the information multiple ways, if it's working at the most superficial level, short-term memory can store information for a short period of time, for 20 to 30 seconds. So here we have the picture of the deer. It is noticed through sensory input, and it goes into your eye in short-term or working memory. The final part of the stage theory model, the three-part stage theory model, is the long-term memory, where it's kept in long-term storage and you're able to retrieve it over the course of the long term. Long-term memory is like a permanent depository, while short-term memory would be more like RAM, where it's in a computer cut off after the computer is turned off. Long-term memory is more like ROM. You can keep it for a long period of time. Any of this information that's in long-term memory is stored and retrieved when necessary. Information stored in long-term memory is stored indefinitely. So here you see again the sensory input going into the eye, goes into short-term memory, short-term or working memory. If it's rehearsed, it goes to number 3, becomes a feedback loop, and it goes around and around until after enough rehearsal and feedback, it will go into the long-term memory and then is eventually able to be retrieved. This is a more focused in aspect of short-term and long-term memory. Again, the iconic imagery goes in short-term memory and it's rehearsed. There's a feedback loop, and it loops more and more. The more feedback, the more this loops, the more likelihood it's going to go into long-term memory, and you're able to retrieve it, these iconic images over the long term. So there you go. That was the stage theory model of memory. Thanks for listening. Look forward to seeing you in our next lecture. Take care.